We start with a look at the Big 12 standings as they currently sit. Not much has changed from last week except the pecking order right there in the middle. Oklahoma and Baylor are still just 2 of 10 teams in the country that remain undefeated. Iowa State cruised last week while Texas needed a walk-off field goal to take down 2-5 Kansas. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Aaron Pryor. This is Big 12 Big Football presented by Dr. Pepper. Baylor and West Virginia are off this week. The Bears notched their third fourth quarter comeback in the last 4 weeks to pick up a win last week. West Virginia struggled against Oklahoma like pretty much everybody else does. And that's exactly where we're going to start. OU takes its 22-game true road game winning streak into Manhattan this weekend to face a K-State squad fresh off a home win over TCU last week. The K-State pass defense continues to be the strong suit for the Wildcats this year. They held TCU to just 138 yards last weekend. Now, part of that is the fact that teams are trying to run the ball on Kansas State more than they're trying to throw it. And that's because the Wildcat run defense has been a struggle. They give up 195 yards on the ground per game. And if you're OU, that's gonna be the area you most expect to see exploited all day on Saturday. And not necessarily because the Sooners are trying to take advantage of the second worst rush defense in the league. Oklahoma has the 7th best rushing attack in the country, piling up 273 yards a game. It's just what they do. Jalen Hurts by himself averages 100 yards a game. Then you mix in Kennedy Brooks and Trey Sermon's efforts, and you've got a piece of the Sooners that nobody has been able to stop.
Trey, a lot of experience now. Has played a lot for us here the last couple of years. Certainly a physical presence. He's always been a very physical runner. I think he's starting to get his body in the kind of shape that we kind of envisioned when we recruited him. To have more big play ability, more quickness, more speed, which I think he's certainly developed. And he's also healthier than he's been in a long time. And Kennedy kind of burst onto the scene last year, had obviously a fabulous back half of the year. Kind of very, very similar, kind of guys that you feel like have been able to do a lot early in their careers, but that have a higher ceiling. And so it's finding all the different ways we can to help push them to get that, whether it's learning it better, whether it's fundamentals, whether for those guys, a lot has just been physical development, and I think they've both taken some steps there.
Kansas State doesn't throw the ball a ton. Skylar Thompson has the fewest pass attempts in the league, but from an efficiency standpoint, he's right there in the middle of the Big 12. The Wildcats have got to keep pushing the ball down the field and try to get it into number 83's hands. Dalton Schoen leads the Cats in almost every pass-catching category. He's a Kansas kid and a Wildcat through and through. His parents and his older brother all went to K-State. Dalton is already one of the all-time great receivers in Kansas State history, so getting the ball in his hands always results in big things. He's even averaging better than 14 yards per catch.
He is a true K-Stater, and I think when you think about a K-State football program and their type of football players is Dalton Schoen. He's a walk-on kid, earned a scholarship. He works harder than anybody in the room. He's going to run great routes. He's very efficient with his discipline of getting his route depth. He understands the game, great football IQ, very good possession receiver. He's going to catch the ball, and he'll surprise you with his run after catch. And he's a fast guy whenever he gets going. And he's really just a really reliable guy. Very good teammate and a great leader.
Oklahoma and Kansas State get rolling at 11 a.m. on ABC. Now, 2 weeks ago, we were introduced to Iowa State running back Breece Hall. He went for 132 yards and 3 scores against West Virginia. You say, okay, real nice game. But then he does it again last week against Texas Tech. Now, you've got our attention. Hall popped off for 183 yards on 19 carries and found the end zone twice in the Cyclones' road win in Lubbock. Iowa State has tried several different running backs this year looking for that lead guy. And based on his performance in these last 2 games, Breece Hall just might be that guy. Breece is the first true freshman Cyclone running back to go over 100 yards in back-to-back games. His 183 against Texas Tech was the most by a true freshman running back from a Power 5 conference this year, but he didn't just get it done on the ground. Hall also had 3 catches for 73 yards. The Cyclones will face an Oklahoma State team desperate for a win on Saturday. The Cowboys have given up the 3rd most rushing yards in the Big 12 this season, something they're gonna have to shore up if they want to keep Iowa State at bay. The Pokes, of course, have the threat of Chuba Hubbard popping off at a moment's notice, but OSU has got to clean up their turnovers and force stops if they want to have a chance at holding Iowa State down and walking out of Ames with the win on Saturday. Again, that game 2:30 p.m. on FS1. The other game at 2:30 on Saturday, TCU and Texas. The Longhorns just got by Kansas in Austin last week and will certainly be looking to clean up a lot of glaring issues that came out of that game, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And I know that UT was banged up in a terrible way right now, but Texas has got to get it figured out with a tough November slate ahead of them. The UT offense does continue to keep moving the ball up and down the field and putting up points, but they'll be tasked with keeping that going against the #1 defense in the Big 12 out in Fort Worth. TCU has got its offensive struggles, but the defense, except for that Iowa State game, has kept them in every contest. And quarterback Max Duggan has yet to throw an interception this season. He's just 13 passes short of breaking the all-time TCU record set back in 2006. Finally, Kansas will host Texas Tech after the Jayhawks nearly knocked off UT last weekend. It was the debut of new offensive coordinator Brent Dearman, whose Kansas offense lit up the Longhorns for 569 yards and 48 points. That's the most points Kansas has scored in a Big 12 game in 9 years. Oh, and Pooka Magic is back. RB1 torched the Texas defense for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 4 catches in there as well. The $190 by Pooka was the most rushing yards allowed by a Texas defense since Tom Herman's arrival. Pooka is 17th in the country in rushing yards per game, which is pretty incredible considering he didn't even really take over the load of reps until 3 games ago.
He's fast and he's shifty, and those things don't describe him, okay? You have to get, there's got to be another word besides shifty. It's got to be seam runner. It's got to be never missed a cut. There has to be another term for Pooka Williams other than fast and shifty. You know, he slices in and steals 3 7-yards when you're not supposed to get any yards in that play. So, pretty special.
Tech's got to get back on track as well. The Raiders have played in all but 1 close game this year. I certainly expect this one to come down to the later parts of the 4th quarter over in Lawrence. So Roderick Thompson is still doing his thing. Jed Duffy's got to get the ball pushed down the field against Kansas. His longest completion against Iowa State was only 25 yards, and that was on 52 pass attempts. Somebody's gonna get a much-needed win this weekend, something that both teams need at this point in the season desperately as November approaches. Kickoff from the booth set for 6 p.m. on FS1. Now, top plays? Let's do top plays.
Keith Patterson, you got to find ways to try and dial it up. Flips this one out to Breece Hall. Hall, stiff arm it down the sideline. Breece Hall, gone. Is gone. 75 yards.
Carries. That's about the pitch count for him. For 125 yards. It'll add to the total here. Nice. That is L.D. Brown that's in for Chuba. L.D.T.D.
Groudon deep in his own end zone. And they block it. Loose. Oklahoma has it.
Coming straight up the middle of the field. Runs right by that protective wall. Listen, that guy's got to take somebody. You take somebody so that the punter can get that away. You can't sit in the middle of 2 players.
On 2nd and 5. It's kept by Duggan again. Duggan still on his feet, takes a hit. Now the stiff arm. Duggan still going. Diving for the pylon. Touchdown! What a run by Max Duggan! 46 yards! Holy cow!
Are you kidding me? My goodness, the straight arm, he took a hit. He took a nice little shot there from number 4 for Kansas State. Wayne Jones, the young safety, and then the stiff arm, and he finishes at the pylon.
The ruling on the field was a touchdown. That plays under further review.
Yeah, he's in. He's in. The forearm with the on the inside of the pylon. To me, they're not going to be able to turn that over.
My goodness, the straight arm, he took a hit. He took a nice little shot there from number 4 for Kansas State, Wayne Jones, the young safety, and then the stiff arm, and he finishes at the pylon.
Game-winning kick of his young career. Dicker the kicker. Up and good. Texas walks it off the foot of Cameron Dicker.
That's it. That's all. I'm getting out of here. We'll see you next weekend.